It's already done. The deal is moving. And Rihanna doesn't even know yet what just got whispered in a Paris boardroom about her empire. Wait, rewind. Because while Vogue was crowning her queen of the Met Gala carpet, the same morning, in a different building, a financial bomb with her name on it was getting handed to the press. And nobody on her team saw it coming until the headline already hit. This isn't a rumor. This is the part you weren't supposed to read. Okay, so let me set this up the right way, because the timing on this is too clean to be an accident, and I need you to really sit with this for a second. Same day, same 24-hour window, same Rihanna. On one screen, Vogue is splashing her face across every fashion vertical on the internet, calling her the best-dressed presence of the entire Met Gala. Cute outfit, cute moment, cute headlines. Everybody is clapping. On the other screen, the Financial Times, which does not play with its words, drops an exclusive saying Lvmh, the biggest luxury empire on earth, is reviewing its stake in Fenty. As in selling. As in, this brand has not reached expected performance levels. That's not a tabloid line. That's FT language. That is a corporate funeral whisper dressed up in business English. And the second I saw both stories sitting next to each other, I knew exactly what was happening. Because in this industry, when the praise gets that loud on the exact same morning the bad business news drops, that's not a coincidence. That's image management. That's a cover. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's break the timeline down first. Because what's actually going on inside the Arnault family is messier than anything we expected. So the Financial Times, and I cannot stress enough that this is the FT, not Shade Room, not a blog, comes out and reports that Bernard Arnault, one of the richest humans alive, the man who basically owns global luxury, is considering moves on multiple labels inside the Lvmh portfolio. Among the names being reviewed, Fenty, Marc Jacobs, and reportedly a couple others sitting in that uncomfortable middle tier of the empire. The wording was the part that made my jaw drop. FT described Fenty as a business that has not reached expected performance levels. Read that again, slowly, because when a publication that moves real money uses language like that, brands shake. Investors flinch. PR teams start sweating through their suits in real time. And it gets crazier. The deal, if it goes through, reportedly nets Lvmh billions of euros. Billions, which they say they need to reinvest into other parts of the empire that are performing. Translation, Fenty is being treated like a passenger Lvmh would rather throw off the boat so the rest of the ship can sail faster. That's the part Rihanna's people are not going to be okay with. Now, here's where it gets messy, and this is the part nobody wants to say on camera, so I'll say it for them. Fenty is not failing. Let me repeat that. Fenty is not failing. Fenty Beauty made Rihanna a billionaire. Savage X Fenty pulled in hundreds of millions in revenue. Fenty Beauty literally rewrote the rulebook on shade inclusion when it dropped 40 foundations during an era where prestige beauty was still pretending darker skin tones didn't exist. So when Lvmh labels Fenty as underperforming, compared to what? Compared to Louis Vuitton? Compared to Dior? Those are century-old institutions with multi-generational customers and recession-proof prestige. Of course, Fenty looks smaller next to them. That's not failure. That's math. But here's the question that started lighting up timelines once this story broke. And it's the question Rihanna's camp is reportedly fuming over behind closed doors. If Fenty is underperforming, then why are Jay-Z's brands still safe? Let me lay this out, because this is where the story stops being a business story and becomes a personal one. Lvmh has a working relationship with Jay-Z, specifically through Armand de Brignac, the champagne brand everyone knows as Ace of Spades. There's also Dus in the cognac space, with distribution tied into the bigger premium spirits network where Lvmh has influence everywhere. Now look at the receipts. Ace of Spades exists in a market segment where younger consumers are reportedly drinking less, period. It sits in that ultra-premium, buy it for the photo op, lane, celebration purchases, gifts, music video props. Naturally limited sales volume. Dus performs decently in cognac, but it is not, by any honest analyst's read, a market-leading powerhouse. Now compare that to Fenty. Beauty empire, cultural phenomenon, billionaire maker, reinvented an entire industry standard. By any measurable business metric, Fenty has outperformed both of those Jay-Z brands. Not even close. And yet, which brand is on the chopping block? Fenty. Which brands are staying comfortably parked inside LVMH's portfolio with no public conversation about being divested? Jay-Z's. I'm sorry, but I have to say it because somebody has to say it. It's giving favoritism. It's giving the boys protect the boys. It's giving, we built the table together and you're just the dinner guest. Because the receipts on the friendship are loud. Jay-Z and Bernard Arnault aren't business associates. They are personal friends. Years deep. Family level deep. Jay is reportedly close not just with Bernard, but with Bernard's sons too, Frederick and Alexander. The same Arnault sons who, according to the Financial Times, are reportedly supportive of trimming the lower-performing brands like Fenty. So let me get this straight. The sons who are besties with Jay-Z are the same sons pushing to sell off Rihanna's brand while keeping Jay-Z's brands warm and untouched? You can't make this up. This is a movie. Somebody pitch it to A24. But here's the twist nobody is talking about loud enough. The Arnault family is reportedly not united on this. The older Arnault siblings, Antoine and Delphine, are reportedly raising flags. Not because they love Fenty, but because the frontrunner buyer is a French billionaire named Vincent Bollore, who is politically charged, perceived as staunchly right-wing, and tied up in a moment where France is heading into a presidential election cycle. Translation? Antoine and Delphine don't want LVMH attached to a politically explosive transaction right before voting season. They are worried about optics. They are worried about backlash. They are worried about the family name showing up in headlines next to a politically toxic billionaire. Meanwhile, the younger Arnault sons, Frederick and Alexander, are reportedly more locked in on the pure financial math. Trim the fat, refocus on Louis Vuitton, refocus on Dior, dump the underperformers. So now you've got a billionaire family at war with itself over whether to dump a black woman's beauty brand to a politically right-wing French billionaire in the middle of an election cycle, on the same day Vogue is publicly crowning her best dressed. If your jaw isn't on the floor, you're not paying attention. Now let's talk about the Met Gala. Because the timing is wild. The theme this year was fashion as art. On paper, that should have produced some of the most boundary-shattering, conversation-defining looks of the decade. Fashion as art is not, wear a pretty gown. It's, wear a statement. It's, wear something that means something. But what we got instead was mid. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It was mid. It was a parade of beautiful gowns and polished glam with very little of the actual conceptual risk-taking the theme demanded. The craftsmanship was visible. The art? Less so. And Rihanna's outfit, and I love her, I do, was described by basically every honest fashion voice online with the exact same word. Cute. Not iconic. Not generation-defining. Cute. Polished. Pretty. Safe. So why did Vogue crown her best dressed? Why on that specific day? Why on the same morning the FT exclusive about Fenty dropped? Some people are saying it was a pure coincidence. Maybe Vogue editors genuinely believed her look was the strongest. Sure. But others, and the louder voices online, are saying this looks a lot like coordinated narrative protection. As in, if the financial story is going to make Fenty look weak, let's make sure the personal Rihanna story makes her look strong. Balance the headlines. Protect the queen. Run interference. Because in luxury fashion media, nothing happens by accident. Stories get placed. Headlines get timed. Crowns get handed out on schedule. And while we're talking about the Met Gala, can we acknowledge what was happening with Beyoncé that same night? Because that added another layer of weird. Beyoncé wore two outfits. The red carpet one, which had this glove detail that, in several photos, just looked unfinished. People said it. Stylists said it. The internet said it. Then the second outfit, the one she changed into once she was inside the actual event, was reportedly the stronger look. The one nobody really got to photograph properly. And then there was the Blue Ivy moment. Reports said Beyoncé and Jay-Z were asking Blue to take her sunglasses off at certain points during the night. Blue, in classic Blue fashion, kept them on. Power move. We respect it. But pull back and look at all of it together. Celebrity kids running around at what is supposed to be an industry fundraiser for the Costume Institute. Vogue handing out best dressed crowns on the same morning a portfolio-shaking financial story drops. Fashion as art turning into fashion as celebrity mixer. And you start to feel the whole night was less about the art and more about who got the headline. Mission accomplished, I guess. And then, of course, the clips started circulating. The ones showing Rihanna and A$AP Rocky looking visibly distant during a Met Gala afterparty. People said tension. People said argument. People said relationship trouble. Now, here's where I'm going to be the adult in the room for 1 second. A few seconds of footage from a crowded party does not tell the full story of a relationship. Couples have moments. Tired parents have moments. Famous people in front of 200 phones have moments. Whatever is or isn't happening with RIH and Rocky is genuinely none of our business, and not the actual story here. But the timing? The fact that this minor moment got amplified loudly online the same week the Fenty story dropped? That's worth noticing, because it shifted attention. It moved the conversation away from the boardroom and onto the bedroom. Classic deflection energy. Now let me zoom out, because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Jay-Z has been dealing with massive legal headlines and intense public scrutiny over the last several months. The kind of attention that, in any other era of corporate America, would have triggered companies to quietly create distance, reevaluate partnerships, hit the brakes on visible association. But that has not happened. LVMH, still attached. The NFL, through Roc Nation Sports and the Inspire Change Initiative, still attached. The institutional layer around Jay-Z has not budged, and many analysts are pointing out that institutional loyalty is the deepest form of protection a public figure can have. As long as LVMH and the NFL stay publicly tied to Jay-Z, every other corporation reads that as a green light. The headlines don't matter. The lawsuits don't matter. The whispers don't matter. The institutions are still in. But here is the cold, quiet truth sitting underneath all of this. Those institutions only stay loyal as long as the math says they should. The day LVMH or the NFL ever does step back, the impact on public perception will be louder than any lawsuit headline ever was. Institutional separation hits different. That's the consequence that actually changes lives at this level. And the fact that those separations have not happened around Jay-Z, while Fenty is reportedly being labeled the weak link. That's not nothing. That's a choice. That's a chess move. Let's go back to the Financial Times language for a second. Because words inside a luxury financial exclusive are surgical. They are chosen. They are negotiated. They are sometimes literally placed by competing camps inside the company who want a specific narrative to go public. Calling Fenty underperforming inside an FT exclusive does damage. Real damage. It affects how retailers treat the brand. It affects how investors look at celebrity beauty companies. It affects how consumers, even the loyal ones, start to feel about whether the brand is still hot. And it gives potential buyers leverage, because once the brand is publicly labeled as underperforming, the price tag in any sale conversation drops. So who benefits from that label being public before a deal closes? The buyer. Whoever wants to buy Fenty cheap. Whoever is sitting at the table waiting to make an offer at a discount. Vincent Bollore, allegedly the frontrunner, would be very happy if Fenty's public valuation took a hit before paperwork got signed. You see what I'm doing here? You see the picture? This isn't a financial coincidence. This is a pre-negotiation. This is a leak with a purpose. So what does Rihanna actually do here? Option 1. LVMH exits. Rihanna and her team buy back full control. She runs Fenty independent. She loses the LVMH retail network, the European luxury credibility, the distribution muscle. But she gains 100% control over a brand she already built into a billion-dollar machine. That's not a downgrade. That's an unchaining. Option 2. A new majority partner comes in. Could be Bollore. Could be someone else. And if it is Bollore, you now have a politically charged French billionaire in control of a brand whose entire DNA is rooted in inclusivity, diversity, and global cultural representation. That is a brand identity time bomb. Customers will react. Loud. Option 3. LVMH walks back the whole thing. Bernard Arnault personally intervenes. The deal dies. The headline gets quietly buried. And we all pretend none of this happened. This is the cleanest path for LVMH, but it requires somebody high up admitting publicly that the leak was a mistake. That rarely happens. Whichever option lands, Fenty is not disappearing. The brand has too much cultural equity to vanish. But the relationship between Rihanna and the luxury establishment is permanently changed. The trust is bruised. The mask slipped. Okay, let me be honest with you guys. The part of this story that genuinely upsets me, and I think it should upset anyone paying attention, is the double standard. Rihanna built one of the most successful celebrity-led businesses in modern history. Fenty Beauty became a textbook case study taught in marketing classes. The brand changed an industry, and the company that helped her scale it is now reportedly the same company labeling her business underperforming, while keeping Jay-Z's lower-performing brands quietly safe. This is not a Rihanna story. This is a how business actually works story. This is a who gets protected and who gets traded in story. This is a friendships at the top story. And the fact that Rihanna's team has not publicly responded yet tells you everything. They are likely figuring out how to play their hand. You don't move loudly when you are positioning to either buy the company back or negotiate a better exit. You go quiet. You let the noise build. You wait. That silence right now? That's the loudest part of this whole story. Let's do one more piece of math because it actually changes how you read this whole thing. Lvmh reportedly closed last year with free cash flow north of 11 billion euros. 11 billion. With AB, that is not a company on the edge. That is not a company sweating its rent. That is not a company that needs to sell anything to survive. So when Lvmh starts publicly trimming brands, it's not survival mode. It's strategy mode. And strategy mode at this level is always personal, always political, always about who is in the room when the decision gets made. The luxury sector has had a rough stretch. Rising prices, tighter consumer wallets, instability in major spending regions including the Middle East, and a generation of younger shoppers who simply do not care about logo prestige the same way their parents did. Lvmh felt it. Everyone in luxury felt it. But you don't dump a billion-dollar beauty brand because you had a soft quarter. You dump it because somebody at the table decided it didn't fit the bigger picture they want to paint. And right now the picture they're painting is Louis Vuitton, Dior, and the empire's untouchable core. Everything else is up for debate. Here's the part the financial outlets are barely whispering. For the first time in the entire modern history of Lvmh, the company is reportedly in downsizing mode. Not expansion mode. Not acquisition mode. Downsizing mode. Read that again. The company that spent the last 30 years buying up every prestige label on earth is suddenly playing defense. The company that always grew its portfolio is now shrinking it. That's a vibe shift. That's an entire industry signal. And when a vibe shift like that hits the luxury world, the first brands to feel the squeeze are never the legacy giants. The first brands to feel it are always the newer, celebrity-tied, culturally fast-moving names that don't have century-old prestige to fall back on. Fenty is exactly that profile. So is Marc Jacobs to some extent. They are valuable. They are profitable. But they are not bulletproof in the way a 150-year-old French maison is bulletproof. And in a downsizing era, valuable but not bulletproof is exactly the kind of brand that ends up on a sale list. Let's be honest about what the Lvmh partnership gave Fenty in the first place, because losing it is not a small thing. Lvmh didn't just hand Fenty checks. Lvmh handed Fenty doors. Doors into European department stores that don't open easily. Doors into fashion editor inboxes. Doors into Parisian retail spaces. Doors into the unspoken VIP Rolodex that determines which celebrity brand gets treated like a serious fashion house versus which one gets treated like a vanity project. Without Lvmh, Fenty Beauty is still a powerhouse. Make no mistake, Sephora distribution is enormous. The customer base is loyal. The shade range is iconic. But Fenty Fashion? That's a different story. Fenty Fashion only got the seat at the table it had because Lvmh pulled the chair out. Without that backing, Rihanna's fashion ambitions go back to fighting for credibility against houses that have been doing this since before her great-grandmother was born. That's the part Rihanna's team is calculating right now. Not just, can we keep the beauty brand alive? That part is easy. The harder question is, can we keep the fashion brand legitimate without the luxury establishment co-signing it anymore? Here's a thought I want to leave with you because it has been quietly nagging at me since this story broke. What if Rihanna already knew? Think about it. The Financial Times exclusive didn't drop out of thin air. These stories percolate. Sources whisper. Lawyers call lawyers. PR teams catch wind. And Rihanna's team is not a group of amateurs. They are some of the sharpest operators in the business. If they knew this was coming, suddenly the Met Gala appearance reads differently. Suddenly the perfectly polished look reads like positioning. Suddenly the Vogue crown reads less like coincidence and more like counter-narrative. Suddenly, the silence from her camp on the FT story reads less like surprise and more like patience. Because if Rihanna is gearing up to buy Lvmh out and take Fenty independent, the last thing she wants to do is publicly fight the story. She wants the public to see her winning the carpet on the same morning Lvmh whispers she's losing the boardroom. She wants the contrast loud. She wants the people picking sides. That's not weakness. That's chess. And if that's what's happening behind the scenes, Rihanna might be 3 moves ahead of everyone calling this a corporate funeral. And here is the part one want you to sit with before you click off this video. The Financial Times story was presented as an exclusive. Exclusives in luxury journalism do not happen by accident. Somebody picked up a phone. Somebody made a call. Somebody at Lvmh, or close to Lvmh, wanted this story in print on a very specific day. And that very specific day happened to be the Met Gala. The exact day Rihanna would be photographed more than any other person on Earth. The exact day Vogue would crown her best dressed. The exact day every fashion outlet on the planet would be carrying her name across every front page. You leak the bad news on the day the good news is loudest. The bad news gets drowned. The good news distracts. The bad news quietly does its damage in the background while everyone is busy posting carpet photos. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. And whoever orchestrated it knew exactly what they were doing. So that's where we are. Rihanna won the carpet. Lvmh won the timing. Bollore is waiting in the wings. The Arnault family is fighting itself. Jay-Z's brands are untouched. And Fenty, the most culturally important beauty brand of the last decade, is sitting on the table waiting to find out which billionaire decides its next chapter. This story is far from over. The next 60 days will tell us whether the deal moves forward, whether Rihanna fights publicly, whether Vincent Bollore makes a formal offer, and whether the Arnault internal civil war boils over into a real corporate split. If you want me to track all of it, the receipts, the rumors, the public moves, and the quiet calls behind closed doors, like this video, hit subscribe, drop a comment with what you think Rihanna's next move should be, and stay locked in. Because if the last 48 hours showed us anything, it's that the real story in fashion isn't on the carpet. It's in the conference room nobody is filming. And somebody just opened the door. The door is open. The story is moving. Nobody is filming the room where the real decision gets made.